Hi, this is Aaron Wilson, Texans reporter. Just watched the Super Bowl, and like all of you, we saw the Philadelphia Eagles absolutely dominate the Kansas City Chiefs, the defending champions. Champions no more. So instead of a three-peat for Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, and I'm sure there are a lot of Texans fans out there that are happy, along with the rest of the country, they were a little tired of the Chiefs winning the Super Bowl every year. So now it's the Eagles. And how they got it done, I think, is instructive for the Texans. It was at the line of scrimmage. They dominated on both sides of the football. We saw an outstanding pass rush that they dialed up. Vic Fangio, their defensive coordinator, without having to blitz. They did it with their linemen, and the Texans are a team that's capable of having that kind of defensive performance. We've seen Will Anderson Jr. and Danielle Hunter take over games. And for the Texans to make it to the Super Bowl next year and win it all, which is, something that obviously that's their aspiration. That's the ambition they've set as an organization. They're tired of just being the AFC South champs and losing the divisional round. As you know, they're 0-6 in that divisional round, and they've never reached the AFC championship. They're the only team in the AFC that's never traveled that far in the postseason. So obviously, the bar has been set for next season where they want to go. To get to that point, they've got to address several glaring needs. They have to really continue the benchmarks of success we've seen already and improve in several areas. I want to go through them as we head into the offseason, which truly begins now that the 2025 season is in the books. The Super Bowl is over, and now the offseason beckons and next steps for the Texans and all of their competitors, the 31 other teams around the league. So starting with the Texans and where they stand, they have some opportunities to improve, but they have limited resources in terms of they don't have the highest draft pick. They have the 25th overall pick of the first round. So what kind of football player is that going to be? What kind of talent? What area of need do they need to address? Then you're looking at free agency. And they have some of their own free agents that they will try to re-sign. I'm sure that they will negotiate with several of their own players, and there could be some more subtractions coming from the roster in terms of pay cuts, and also if they fail to get a pay cut, they can't restructure, possibly cutting some players. So we're looking at a pretty busy offseason. I don't think they'll be on any spending spree comparable to last year when Nick Cassera really pushed his chips to the middle of the table, and they went for it. They made several moves that worked out, some that didn't. So looking at the Texans and what they did last year, I don't think you can expect a repeat of that kind of spending extravaganza that they did during free agency. In the looks, of the Texans, they have a football team that is still built to contend. I look at, where they are at quarterback with a new offense coordinator, Nick Caley. I think C.J. Stroud can be very successful. I expect him to bounce back heading into his third season. They have to get better on offense overall, though. And DeMeco Ryans outlined that quite well during his season-ending press conference. It's not good enough. And here's why. Pass protection. You'll hear this a lot. They allowed 54 sacks, and they allowed 52 sacks for C.J. Stroud, so 54 overall, a couple times for Davis Mills. And it really caused a regression of C.J. statistically and fundamentally, some of his mechanics. He was throwing off his back foot. He was under too much duress. He was getting banged up. He wasn't hurt enough to miss games, but his shoulder was sore, his knee, his ankle at times. And very tough, gritty competitor. He stayed in those games and did what he could. And he was under, really adverse circumstances. He didn't have Stephon Diggs for the bulk of the season. They lost Tank Dell in December to a horrific knee injury. So when I look at what the Texans need to do to get to the Super Bowl, and they're already a 35-1 odds for them to get to the Super Bowl and win it all. The most popular teams in the AFC are, again, the Chiefs, the Bills, the Ravens, and the Bengals, who ended last season on a hot streak and were just edged out by some of the other teams. But I think, will be heard from this year in the AFC North. The Texans will again have a first-place schedule. They're going to face a lot of challenges. So let's look for some solutions and things that the Texans can do to try to get better. As far as the offensive line, and obviously, they've moved on from Chris Strausser. They promoted Cole Popovich to run game coordinator and head offensive line coach. Popovich dealt mostly with the run blocking last year. It was up and down. They had some success running the football with Joe Mixon, and there are other times where really personnel-wise, guys were allowing the defensive linemen to shoot gaps, or they were getting bull rushed, and they didn't do a great job of creating holes for Joe Mixon. That's why the running game wasn't more consistent. To me, Joe Mixon is someone that's capable of rushing for 1,500 to 1,700 yards and over 10 touchdowns every season. They just didn't utilize him enough, and that was sort of part of Bobby Slowick's, his downfall, because Bobby refused to run the ball more. He would abandon the run as soon as it was stopped. He wasn't stubborn with the run. He wasn't real determined about it. He would just go pass happy. And that was one of the reasons why, and also an inability to adjust and a loss of confidence in the locker room with key offensive leaders, and they expressed that input and why he's fired. We've been through that, and now it's for Nick Caley, the new offensive coordinator, and what he's going to do from a scheme standpoint, implementing some of the Sean McVay system and some of the things he learned with the New England Patriots. He's coaching Rob Gronkowski as their tight ends coach, working with Josh McDaniels. I expect kind of a blend of those things and his own imprint and his own style of leadership. I've heard very good things about his intelligence, his ability to adjust, but he is a first-time play caller, and that's why you have him backstopped by having Jerry Stolpinski come in. Reported about him coming in from the Rams. He's a senior offensive assistant. They still have Bill Lazor on the staff, who also has that title. And Gerard Johnson is back as the quarterbacks coach. That's instrumental to C.J. Stroud's continued development. Looking at the wide receiver position, Stephon Diggs is a free agent, and he's coming off of a torn ACL. He's made remarkable progress from the ACL, and he's someone that I believe there's mutual interest from both sides on possibly bringing him back, and I think he has a good medical outlook. I've been told by several sources, expect him to make a full recovery, Aaron. He will be able to get back to where he was. He's a little older, he's a little expensive, and they have to come up with the right price if they're going to do that. Cooper Kupp is available via trade. He has only played 12 games in each of the past couple of seasons. There's some question about durability. If you are going to shift gears to Kupp, who obviously knows that system and would be helpful to Nico Collins and the rest of the receivers, as an older receiver and is very capable when he's in the lineup, I think you would have to really structure the contract with a lot of protection in terms of his pay being built around games played per game active roster bonuses. So you can get creative with that, and you can do the same thing with Stephon Diggs. Hitch your wagon necessarily as your number 2 wide receiver, 2 players coming off of injuries, sounds a little risky to me. That's why I don't know if you pivot to a Chris Godwin also coming off an injury, and it's a fairly underwhelming wide receiver free agent class. And as we've said a few times, the Texans don't have a lot of salary cap space. They can create some by cutting Shaq Mason, by restructuring contracts. That includes possible restructure candidates in Dalton Schultz, Daniil Hunter, Azeez Al-Shaair. You can do that with several players if you're looking for cash, and you can create the cap space by doing simple restructures and adding void years and pushing the credit card bill further down the road. And it's something that I think they're going to have to do. Really digress a little bit about the offensive line and some decisions they have to make beyond looking at free agents and things like that. Shaq Mason's performance was pretty underwhelming, and I think he's a prime candidate possibly to be released. You have to look at Shaq and his contract and allowing about 10 sacks last year and a ton of pressures and quarterback hits, and wonder if at his age, above 30, has he reached a point where, really the juice isn't worth the squeeze, and you have to decide, are you coming back with him as your right guard? If you're not, how do you replace him? Are you going with Titus Howard at left guard and maybe Juice Scruggs at right guard? That combination looked pretty good in the Titans game in the regular season finale. Obviously, it wasn't a real extended look at them, but it looked okay to me. Are you moving Juice Scruggs back to center? Are you going with Jared Patterson again? Are you going to draft one? Are you going to look at free agency? And, really rarely are there a lot of great centers out there. But, those are some of the decisions they're facing. They have to decide and evaluate. Do you want Titus Howard going back to right tackle? Do you think Blake Fisher's ready? He was pretty underwhelming, in my opinion, as a second-round pick this past year. Players tend to get a lot better in the offseason, so you got to gauge his improvement and his outlook. The only real sure thing they have is Pro Bowl left tackle Laremy Tunsil. So I feel good about Tunsil. I saw some rumor on the internet about trading him. That makes no sense whatsoever from a contractual or performance standpoint. Laremy Tunsil is an answer, a solution, not a problem. You need to come back with Laremy Tunsil. He's also a team leader and someone that the other linemen really respect and gravitate toward. Moving back out to the wide receiver position, I know Chris Godwin's out there. There's a lot of players. I'm just not sure if they're the right guy. And if I was a betting man, I would think that they work something out with Stephon Diggs. They haven't really initiated anything yet, so they've got some time to work on that and see, where is Diggs medically? What does he want? How much money is it going to cost? And these are all unanswered questions for Nick Caserio, DeMeco Ryans, and the new offensive coordinator Nick Caley to ponder as they head into these important decision time, heading to the NFL scouting combine, and then shortly after that, free agency. So I look at this roster, and obviously a lot of attention on offensive line, wide receiver. On defense, they have some key free agents in Foley Fatukasi and Mario Edwards Jr. I don't know if they'll bring back both of them. The leverage could be good for the Texans to negotiate with both. Fatukasi missed some games with a foot and an ankle injury. You saw Mario Edwards Jr. have a suspension at the start of the season, missing 4 games. His performance, I think, certainly warranted an extension. And then Derek Barnett, another key free agent, part of the defensive line rotation. Do you bring back Barnett? I don't know if necessarily it's going to be a big ticket free agent, but they might have room for 1 or 2. And we just got to see how much money do they have to spend, because a lot of teams have a ton more cap space than the Texans. And, money talks and everything else walks usually when it comes to free agency. It's not just about playing for a winning team. It's not like the Texans just won the Super Bowl. They're a playoff team just like many of these other playoff teams. They give you a chance to win, and most players, when they're picking the team, it's not, unless they're very late in their career, it's not about just necessarily, I think they're surefire for a Super Bowl. It has more to do with, the financial security, the city that they're going to live in. Do they have, good reputation in terms of the coaching staff, the facilities? That NFL Players Association player poll is utilized pretty heavily. A lot of players do look at that when they want to hear about facilities. They ask a lot of questions about the food, the training staff. Even, do they have a sauna? Do they have a steam room? Do they have a chiropractor there every day for adjustments? There's lots of things players are interested in, and these are some of the questions they'll ask about the surface, the artificial turf, the grass. Are they in a dome? Cold weather team, warm weather team. Most people prefer warm weather. The Texans are a team that have a lot of assets when it comes to, the, I would say, attractive city to live in, no state tax, kind of sells itself, and you have a head coach that's very well respected and viewed as a dynamic leader and a player-friendly coach. Not necessarily, someone to be a pushover. Obviously, he's a tough coach, but someone that was a Pro Bowl linebacker, understands what players go through, can relate, and is authentic as a leader. And I think that's a big plus for the Texans. Since I am going to the scouting combine, we'll see a lot of these players at the combine. Don't know if they're all going to work out or not. A lot of the top players choose not to. So we've looked at some mock drafts. And the wide receiver from Ohio State, Emeka Egbugba, he is pretty highly rated, someone that's real popular as a target for them. But the most popular is Tyler Booker, 6'5", 352, has played some tackle, but projects to guard in the NFL. And perhaps he would be there 25th overall. I've also seen Josh Simmons from Ohio State, another popular mock draft for the Texans. On the other side of the football, let's say they don't get back one of those defensive tackles, and you want to get a difference maker there to go with Will Anderson Jr. and Danielle Hunter, someone inside that you can plug in. There's Walter Nolan from Mississippi, and there's also Kenneth Grant from Michigan. So there's a lot of good football players. A lot of them will be around at 25, including someone from, maybe he might wind up with his hometown team, Donovan Jackson from Bel Air, also Ohio State. And, the Buckeyes are the national champs for a reason. So a lot of good names out there. And we're going to have a real busy offseason. We'll debate a lot of the merits and, potential fits with the Texans as we head into that process of free agency and also the draft. It's going to be a very busy offseason, and there's still some coaching staff things to be settled. I think that they'll still look for some more additions to the staff beyond Jerry Schlepinski and Nick Caley. Looking at the defensive side of the ball, they have to replace Nate Ollie, the assistant defensive line coach, who's now the Atlanta Falcons head defensive line coach. Rod Wright will be back. I've heard a couple rumors about Vince Agobasi, the Green Bay Packers assistant defensive line coach. That's one to keep an eye on. I've heard his name from about 3 different people. It's not confirmed. I'm not reporting that he will definitely be the assistant defensive line coach for any of you aggregators out there. And just want to make that clear. I haven't tweeted that or reported that yet because that's not confirmed. And so I try to be very, very specific when it comes to mentioning someone's name like that and any rumors. He did go to A-Leaf Hastings High School, a couple of years younger than Rod Wright, who went to Hastings, then was a big-time defensive end for the Texas Longhorns. With Vince, he played at Duke. He's coached at Ohio State. He was on the same 49ers staff as DeMeco Ryans, so he has that connection too. And he was previously at Boston College before being hired by the Packers. So he's coached in the NFL and the college level, and I think he would be a good addition should that come to fruition. So we'll keep an eye on that. Possibly I've identified someone to watch for the assistant defensive line coaching position. Nate Ollie did a great job, so I'll be looking to have someone just as good come in here to work with the defensive line, which to me is the strength of the team. And you want to do everything you can to augment that group. Rod Wright did a great job after being promoted to head defensive line coach. Probably didn't get enough attention. That happens with a lot of position coaches. They're kind of the unsung heroes, but those are the guys behind the scenes that make things happen. In terms of other things that are going on with the Texans, we're still waiting for a Nick Caley press conference. Look forward to hearing his thoughts, his philosophy, him describe his coaching style, all the questions you would have. And so we'll have coverage of that whenever it happens on this channel and on Twitter at @AaronWilson_NFL, Instagram AaronWilson7128, and of course at KPRC2 at www.click2houston.com. One thing before I go, I want to tell you about my friends at Quick Assist. They are a convenient and trusted place to sell your tickets. Sometimes you can't use all of your tickets. You've got Rockets tickets, but you can't go. Do you feel like only using Ticketmaster? Do you have time to even, list them? Do you know how to do that? So not everybody is really comfortable with that process. But for the folks that gave you Energy Ogre, they also they've started this company, Quick Assist. And I'm proud to partner with them and to tell you more about Quick Assist at quickassist.com. You can get the app online. I've posted my link for Quick Assist on the posts on their YouTube channel. And I encourage anybody out there, maybe it's watching me for the first time, please like and subscribe and support this channel. It is free, and it's something that I really have embraced and I'm digging into as a great way to communicate with you guys, the fans, and to answer your questions. And I read the comments. I like responding to all of you guys, and I appreciate all the feedback and support of this channel at Aaron Wilson Sport. So yeah, please like and subscribe, and check out Quick Assist for all of your ticket sales needs. Until next time, I'm Aaron Wilson, signing off with our latest Texans report.